Well, the new and revamped USC defense hit the field on Saturday, and after it got a certain guy off the field, it looked much better. We will talk USC both on the offensive and the defensive sides, of course, to conclude spring ball in Los Angeles right here at the Voice of College Football. Welcome into Trojans Live. We do it up big with Matt Zemek from Trojans Wire each and every Monday night, 11 Eastern and 8, where it counts. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well. Like we have actual news, actual substance and actual football activity to talk about this week. So it's great.
We certainly do. And yeah, Caleb Williams, when you ascend that high on the the superstar chart of Heisman trophies and to the throne, you can just come in, barely break a sweat, put a big 3-play, 6 points on the board, and yeah, call it a day.
That's right. Like he does not need the reps. He did not need the extra work. And so, like, just with that being the entry point to our discussion here at the Voice of College Football, yeah, like Miller Moss and Malachi Nelson, they needed the work. They needed the live action. They needed to see where they stood. And just speaking about those two, Miller Moss definitely looked better. I think USC fans would pretty uniformly agree that Miller Moss has definitely advanced in his understanding of the game and his understanding of the speed of the game, in his awareness of the whole field, tucking it up away and running, making some quick, decisive, judgments out there and good ones, good decisions to run the ball and showed a little bit of speed, getting yardage. Like his awareness of everything that goes into playing quarterback, that looked good. And so, of course, USC wants Caleb Williams to be healthy. We don't need to explain that. But if Miller Moss is called upon, USC fans have a lot more reason to be confident that Miller Moss can be the field general of the offense. Not to say that, like, there won't be any drop-off. Of course there will be. But, like, you can still see a path. You can still see a very successful USC offense when Miller Moss is on the field. And I reiterate one more time, this is why the San Jose State and Nevada games, it's important to blow these games out by halftime, early third quarter, so that Moss and Malachi Nelson can get the reps. And Malachi Nelson, ballyhooed freshman, lots of rough edges, and that's okay. Like, welcome to the big leagues, kid. And so he has a lot to work on. And though, this is where Cliff Kingsbury comes into play. Like, Cliff can help Lincoln coach up Malachi Nelson and really bring his learning curve along more quickly. Like, it's great that USC has Cliff Kingsbury on staff because, in many ways, Mark, it's not going to be what Cliff Kingsbury does for Caleb Williams. It's going to be what he does for Malachi Nelson. Like, Cliff Kingsbury is probably just a one-year rental. Let's be honest. Like, coaching analysts usually don't last for 1 year. They usually then you just use it as the springboard, and Cliff can, really take it easy. This is a low pressure, low stakes job that he has for 1 year. He's probably going to get back into the head coaching game, maybe offensive coordinator at a top college program in 2024. But in this 1 year, what he does with Malachi Nelson, laying a foundation before Nelson becomes likely the guy in 2024 when USC moves to the Big Ten, that could be Cliff Kingsbury's most lasting contribution to Lincoln Riley and the USC program. So that's the quarterback part of this larger picture coming out of the spring game.
And Matt, just to touch upon Miller Moss again, also good to see him back up what some of the claims from his teammates have been throughout the spring that have said, hey, we can see a definite difference just in his demeanor, his leadership on this field, his level of confidence, and how he's directing the entire group. And then for him to go out there and then show it in front of Trojan Nation is obviously great confirmation there.
And I would just add one more note about Miller Moss. He's shown great loyalty to USC, as every Trojan fan is aware of. Giving him Cliff Kingsbury as a hands-on mentor, that's a tangible reward from Lincoln Riley to Miller Moss for, sticking with it. Because, like, Moss is going to just get a graduate degree in quarterbackology. And that's a small but very real way for Lincoln Riley to say, hey, thanks, Miller, for believing in us, sticking with the program. We really appreciate you being part of our family here.
Matt Zemek's here every Monday night as we present Trojans Live right here at the Voice of College Football, and you catch Matt's work on a daily basis there on Trojans Wire, of course. And we also want to highlight the work put in by Matt, but also Tim and Rick last night on the Trojan Conquest Live show that we present here at the Voice of College Football every Sunday, and bringing back pictures from the spring game and just some really good conversation there from Tim and Rick, and we always appreciate Matt stopping by for that as well. I guess, Matt, if we stay in order here, there was also an impression made in the running back room by the much ballyhooed Quentin Joyner. He got into the game and did some good things, as well as Austin Jones. Certainly, it's a running back room that is multi-talented as well.
Yeah, and I think the big thing, other than that, like all the running backs look good, but like the bigger takeaway is not so much specific players, it's that the whole room has so much more quality depth by the looks of it compared to last year, because Travis Dye was pretty much the man. He was the guy until he got hurt in mid-November against Colorado. And this year, it should be very different. In terms of, you're going to see a rotation. You're going to see a lot of different guys getting the rock. I mean, you should see Marshawn Lloyd getting plenty of touches. You see Austin Jones getting plenty of touches. You should see Quentin Joyner getting plenty of touches. And so USC's in a position where it can keep guys fresh, doesn't have to overly lean on one running back in particular. And that could be extremely valuable, given that, we have a backloaded schedule this season, with Notre Dame really starting the gauntlet in mid-October and then getting into, that Washington-Oregon double stack in early November, and USC having to play 9 straight weeks 4 through 12. Boy, having that stable of several quality running backs, that is going to be really important, because it's not going to be a situation where it all flows through one, maybe two guys. Like we can see USC has at least four. You could also include Amarian Peterson, but at least 4 really solid, dependable running backs. And this doesn't include Raleek Brown, who now is being used at the slot and is probably going to be featured more in the passing game. But like, you can just see how many different tools Lincoln Riley has. And in terms of Quentin Joyner looked really good, and he was certainly impressive. To me, the running back who stood out the most was Marshawn Lloyd, because the word on him, the scouting report on him, based on what he did at South Carolina under Shane Beamer, he's the power guy. He's the between the tackles guy. He's going to be that grinding workhorse up the middle. But we saw him show elusiveness in space on the edges, outside the numbers, making some guys miss one-on-one in the open field. So like, he's not just a power back. He really has a pretty well-rounded skill set. And so I particularly felt he made a big impression. Now, some skeptics will say, and of course we're going to talk about the USC defense plenty, but some people will say, well, that USC tackling is not up to par. And, this defense has a way to go. And again, we'll talk more about that. But to see Marshawn Lloyd make guys miss in the open field, that's kind of he's not just a type. He's not just like a niche specialist running back. I mean, he is going to get the ball on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 this season, but he's not just that kind of running back. He's really a complete running back.
We also got to see the debut of Zach Branch, and he got off to his day with a drop, but after that, contributed well, flashing his shifty speed and what he's able to produce in the open field. Before we head to the defensive side of the ball, was there anything in particular? I always find it difficult to evaluate line play during the spring games, and I don't even know in USC's case how they divided the teams, and that's most reflected, I think, in line play when you either have full units together, working together, first team, second team, or you divide them up to try to create more of a Obviously, the scoring was offense versus defense, but just in regards to line play, if that was, you have any takeaways from the offensive side?
Well, so Lincoln Riley was throwing a lot of different combinations out there. You saw the backups getting in there early. So like, and people were saying, the people who were there in the Coliseum, I'm covering it from home, but people who were at the spring game in the Coliseum were saying, it hasn't all come together. And so like there are more things that need to happen, but like that's what August camp is for. And I think just really a larger overall theme of this spring game, not related to any specific position group, though it definitely applies on the offensive line. Really, the larger theme is you got a lot of players getting their feet wet. You got a lot of players just learning to play together, being part of this new look roster with all the turnover. Again, it's similar to last year with a lot of roster turnover, just a lot of guys getting meaningful experience. And after what happened last year, like, again, Caleb Williams didn't need the reps, and the veteran offensive lineman didn't need the reps. This was a day for the number 2s and the number 3s, to get plenty of snaps, and they did. And I think that with off-season development and then heading into August camp, and also, the on-ramp for the season with that soft opening with San Jose State and Nevada, in the first few weeks, and then the softer portion of the Pac-12 schedule in September, like guys on the offensive side of the ball, I think, like they're going to be ready when it counts. I don't think there's too much of a worry about that, and just let's take a look at Zach Branch for a moment. A couple drop passes, you could tell he was jittery, but like that's such a normal thing. And in many ways, like this is what the spring game's for. You want to make mistakes now, not like, you go out in the field and say, oh, I should make a mistake, but it's more of just, let it go, go out there with energy, go out there, get after it. And you're going to make some mistakes just because, it's all very new. But Zach Branch, he showed his speed and especially his grown man strength when he just shrugged off Shane Lee. Like that was a wow moment. Like this guy is really strong in addition to being very fast. His upside is substantial. And every USC fan was able to see that, through the drop passes. Like, okay, so what? Like, he's going to be there. He's a hard worker. He has a great work ethic. He's going to get there. This was nerves. Flush it out. Learn how to, acquire that tunnel vision focus as a player. Like, it's no real cause for concern. Just the natural talent and athleticism Zach Branch possesses. I mean, it's through the roof, and everyone could see that. And that's great. It's really exciting to see what he could become this year.
Yeah, and of course, for these players, even though the game doesn't count, and it would be easy to dismiss, okay, why would there be any pressure in the Coliseum for the first time? And regardless of the level of play or what it counts or doesn't count, the cameras are on and people are watching, and they know that they know when they step on that field for the first time ever, if they're in a USC uniform, that they are being scrutinized for the first time ever, again, in game action. And there's something to that, and it affects everyone differently. And sometimes it takes a play or two, like the famous cliche goes, one good hit knocks it out of you, and then you're loosened up and lathered up and ready to go after that. Folks, leave those comments and questions there in the live chat. We always take your comments and questions and appreciate your support. And speaking of which, we've got our buddy Jason stopping by as a Michigan fan. So look at this. Jason, we appreciate the contribution. So USC fans, can you tell me about Brendan Baker, the 5-star offensive tackle from Mater Dei High School? I don't know how much about him. Michigan is in his top 5. So we will certainly leave that up to our USC fans there in the chat to chime in on that one. So, Jason, we appreciate the contribution there. And Jason follows us around to all the various shows. So we thank you so much for that, Jason. And also on that note, I would like to let everyone know I had posted a banner just a minute ago. So we will be delivering YouTube memberships right here on the USC channel. And so be looking out for those. I will get those out by the morning, meaning you can go to the front page of the channel. You will see a button that says join, and then you will, don't worry, if you click the button, you are not obligated to anything. You will then see your options in regards to membership tiers and levels. And what it all comes down to is extra exclusive USC content. Matt, besides a number of things, is a master at determining refreshing, interesting angles and topics to USC football and sports in general, really. So we're happy to provide exclusive content, and we will have more information available extremely soon.
Mark, I'm seeing a really good comment from Gixxer Squid on, is it too early to glean anything? Here we go. Is it too early to glean anything from the fact we put up 3 rushing TDs versus a single pass TD? I think we're set to see a shift in the playbook. I would say this, Gixxer, and it's really a very astute point. The playbook was not that varied. You saw Lincoln Riley become a lot more creative with the playbook in the spring game last year. He did a lot more trickeration, a lot more fun stuff in the 2022 spring game. And so I think it's just a message to everyone that if we have to run the ball, we need to be ready. We need to be prepared. We need to be able to really emphasize that piece of the puzzle. Because, Caleb Williams, you saw it on the first drive, 3 plays, whoop, 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 and a touchdown. So did you really need, if you're Lincoln Riley, did you really need to throw the ball a whole lot in this game? No, you did not. You needed to see how all of your different running backs looked. And so part of the story with all of the running backs looking good is that all the running backs got a good taste of action. So those two things are interrelated. And that's smart. Lincoln Riley was very wise in terms of his points of emphasis in this spring game, in terms of, Caleb Williams didn't need the snaps, so he didn't get many, and the running game needed the work, so he ran the ball. All those kinds of calculations, Lincoln Riley fundamentally made the right choices. In terms of what it means, Gixxer, and everyone else watching here at the Voice of College Football, in terms of what it means for the season, too early to say. And especially with, as I reiterate again, you're going to get sick of me mentioning this, but because the first several games are much more manageable than that back end, I think you're going to see Lincoln Riley play around with an experiment with what he has, and he's going to use the first half of the season to set up that second half of the season, see what combinations work, see what playing styles work. But if you had to ask me right now how this is all going to shake out, how this is all going to unfold, I would say this, that when you get into the Notre Dame, Utah, Washington, Oregon sequence, which is going to decide how this season goes, my thought right now, and it could change, but right now, it's that USC is going to throw early to get a lead, and then it's going to run the ball to protect the lead. That's the Steve Spurrier method from Florida. That's how he did it there with the Gators in the 1990s. I think that's going to be the path, the template that Lincoln Riley tries to follow here, because you do have all these shiny toys, in your stable, in your playbook. And, it's not as though you want to go onto the field saying, let's score in 7 minutes every time we have the ball. You don't really do that. You don't try to micromanage it that way. And I think that you use the passing game, you use the receivers, you use the vertical capability to get a lead. But what did we see in that October Utah game? USC getting the 21-7 lead. And I know that Rick Anaya, LBC Trojan, I know that he said this on the Utah postgame show with Tony Altimore and Tim Prangley last October. I remember this. This was Rick's big point of emphasis. We got the 21-7 lead, and then we couldn't hammer the ball. We couldn't, build the lead. We couldn't keep Cam Rising and Dalton Kincaid off the field. We let Utah back into the game, weren't able to put the hammer down. And so that really, to me, is the ultimate point of emphasis here. It's not so much can USC score while controlling the ball in general. It's can USC score and control the ball with a lead, when that defense is, an opposing defense is going to be focused on stuffing the run, making sure USC can't grind the clock. Like, what is the ultimate sign of dominance in football? The defense is expecting you to run, and you can run it anyway. You can still stuff it down their throat. So USC being able to have that capability, Gixer, is really what it's all about. That's why Lincoln Riley emphasized the run in this spring game, because I don't think we need to worry about the passing game. Like, that's going to be there. You have Caleb Williams, Heisman winner, calling all the shots, being so comfortable in this system. It's all about the running game. That is what needed work at the spring game. That is what Lincoln Riley really needed to learn about. That's what we saw. It was a run-heavy playbook, run emphasis, rotating all those running backs. And I think it's no accident that the running back room was one of the more impressive groups on the field on Saturday.
And the diversity of the offense in kind of aiding that situation for a team that, is trying to put together the cliched 4-minute drive to close out a football game that not only is running the ball straight ahead, but also in USC's case still commands a crazy threat of the pass, where a team can't necessarily, unless it's in complete desperation mode, can't sell out because the passing game is just so lethal. And Caleb Williams is not only a swift runner, he's a physical runner. He's just a big body to bring down. So there's another dimension to the game where you got to be guarded against the quarterback run in that as well. And then you've got a number of backs, not necessarily that many of them have proven anything to date, but projected forward, if they're as good as advertised, that it's a collection of backs that provides a number of different skill sets, and they should be fresh at game's end. And it's just a monster of an offense any way you slice it. And if there's going to be an Achilles heel, it would be salting away a less than touchdown lead with 4 minutes left on the clock. If that's the last thing to be worked on, that's pretty impressive. All right. We are here every Monday night. We appreciate all of you being here, and we would love for you to run out there and grab a friend or two that love college football. Of course, USC is first and foremost, but we've got all sorts of college football fan bases represented in the chat. So bring your college football friends with you. USC on defense, Matt, is clearly a template for the defense that can be revamped. Not that they've accomplished anything, but at least what we see from a personnel standpoint on the field, representative of what a revamped defense can look like quickly in college football with the transfer portal, where just about most of the impact players that you see at all three levels are, oh yeah, he's a transfer. He's a transfer. He's a transfer. Just again, not necessarily that this is going to be an elite defense, but if those guys all gel and work together, they certainly have upgraded from a personnel standpoint significantly.
I think they're better. And Tim Prangley on Trojan Conquest Live, he's emphasized, a point that these guys are thicker. They are bigger. They are stronger. Like, you can see the work in the weight room in these guys. That's one piece of the puzzle. I think for me, the biggest takeaway on defense from the spring game is you saw multiple defensive linemen. Like, I've been emphasizing that the defensive line, that's where it really starts for this defense, being able to be formidable at multiple spots, at least like 3 spots, getting regular production, regular good performances. So it's not just the Tuli Pelotu show as it was last year when Tuli was, on an island and was asked to do way too much, didn't have enough regular help every week of that season. So getting several guys to make important plays along the defensive front, that's the key. It's not so much about the one person replacing Tui Pelotu. It's about several guys being there, several guys showing that they're capable of making plays. So Sam Green with the pass rush, Jamil Muhammad, Anthony Lucas, all involved in the pass rush, all part of, what looks like a pass rush, which, at least is somewhat better. How much better? That's the question. But I think we can say it's a little bit better. And, given what we saw last season, just being a little bit better. I mean, you'd hope that it's going to be a few notches better, but even if it's just a little bit better, that could mean the difference between those 43, 42 games going one way or the other. So I would say it's better, but how much, that remains to be seen. And here's, of course, the big cautionary note is that this happened with Caleb Williams on the sideline, and so the secondary, you did see guys going in the air to make big plays, to make interceptions on contested balls, and that's undeniably good. Like, I think instincts, reactions, overall generally good, but it's very different when you're going up against an elite quarterback versus Malachi Nelson, is getting his feet wet, having his baptism by fire. When that quarterback is Michael Penix, when that quarterback is Bo Nix, when that quarterback is Sam Hartman, how, are you going to be in position to make the play? Are you going to get poorly thrown passes, that you can snag? So like they have that part down. When there's a poorly thrown pass, they'll go up and grab it. But you're not going to see poorly thrown passes against the elite quarterbacks USC is going to face. And it's just a natural thing to come out of a spring game, is that, this is not like a high stakes poker against, an elite opposing quarterback. This is within your family, and it's within, it's going up against your backup quarterback who just needs the reps and needs the work. It's not really the same thing as fall Saturdays and crunch time. So there's always going to be that cautionary note, but Kalen Bullock did say that communication in the secondary after that blown coverage on the one Caleb Williams possession at the very start, communication in the secondary was a lot better. Guys were reading things properly before the snap, going to the right check. So, it does seem as though there's some cohesion forming there. It does seem as though, when we look at the overall picture on the defense, the depth and diversity of guys contributing, that's my main point of emphasis, but also some small but real signs that better habits are being formed. And that's what we need to see. That's desperately what we need to see, so that Alex Grinch, after, a very bumpy first season, can it all come together in year two? Some small but real signs that maybe guys are getting it in a way that they didn't quite get it last season.
And Matt, the cornerback position in particular seems to be one in flux, not in a negative sense, but there's a number of talented players in line to vie for playing time and battling for starting spots and for reps.
Yes, and I think in terms of a point of concern, and I wouldn't, and when I say concern, it's not like, panic time, but just here's where we need to see improvement in the summer. Ceyair Wright struggled in the early part of this spring game. Wasn't all the way there, committed some pass interference penalties. And, I think a lot of people within the program were optimistic about how he had been developing during the spring. He's one guy for whom the spring game didn't really match the past few weeks of spring practice. So that's an area of concern. Beyond that, hard to draw any, really big takeaways. But if you're looking for a point of concern, that would be it. But I do think that, guys look like they were playing together as a whole. And it's noteworthy that, with Domani Jackson being part of the mix, that, I think there is certainly an ability with more healthy players and more guys as part of this secondary, being able to call upon more depth. And that's something that Lincoln Riley has pointed to, that there is more depth and that there is more quality on the depth chart when you get down to the number 2s and the number 3s, that there's not nearly as big a drop off from the number 1s to the number 2s. That's something the coaching staff has pretty consistently pointed out in the spring. Just that level of greater depth is something that USC can call upon this season. And I think the USC is in a much better place with regard to its depth and with its versatility compared to a year ago. We saw Anthony Beavers. He was called in the Washington State game when another player got ejected. It was a dubious ejection, but it was an ejection. And, like that defense felt really frail at times when the depth in the secondary was tested. I don't think USC is quite as much on a ledge right now in the secondary. I think it's the unit's been shored up to the extent that I don't think you're going to get USC caught, critically shorthanded unless, of course, an injury wave sweeps through the team. I think this secondary is more fortified to withstand one or two player absences. I think that more guys are there in the pipeline who can step up if called upon this season.
Questions and comments are coming in on the chat concerning really the first big name of sorts in the transfer portal, and that is Georgia defensive lineman Bear Alexander. I don't believe we have anything there in regards to any kind of connection with USC. Now, Bear Alexander was a top 50 player in his recruiting class in 2022, committed at one point to Texas A&M, settled on Georgia. We last saw him in the national championship game throwing around Max Duggan a few times. He had 2 tackles for loss in that game. Actually, within the last hour, we also have 2 other Georgia defensive players entering the transfer portal in inside linebacker Ryan Davis and defensive lineman Sean Washington. And both of those guys were top 100 players in that range when they entered college football. We also see here coming down in the last few minutes a former 5-star edge rusher and Savell Smalls plans to enter the transfer portal from Washington. So there will be bodies there to, to pursue. Oregon as well has flooded the transfer portal market just in the last 24 hours as well, with 3 Oregon defensive players that were all top 150 players coming out of high school. And I think, Matt, this seems to be 2 categories that I see being filled with applicants out of the transfer portal now that we've gone through this cycle 3 or 4 seasons where this seems to be a large volume of players that either were high recruits, highly touted players that maybe they go through their freshman season, things didn't work out, they didn't see the field, and then they see a spring in which, okay, it appears as though things still aren't working out. I can see the writing on the wall. And for this particular class, we're seeing the 2022 class of freshmen that are now entering what would be a redshirt freshman or a sophomore season, them still not receiving the kind of playing time that they anticipated. So you've got that type of collection of players. Then you also have the lowly regarded, lowly ranked players that originally signed with, let's say, a group of 5 school, put in 2 or 3 years of solid work, built a reputation, were highly productive, outplayed their ranking, and now they're ready to make a push into the Power 5, really put on one really strong year at that level of play, and receive that kind of coaching to develop themselves and ready themselves for the NFL and really put that highlight reel out there for NFL scouts. Those are just kind of the general 2 areas that I see flooding the transfer portal market.
Yeah, I would come at it this way, Mark. I think that for some players, like, they want to receive different kinds of coaching. Let me be coached by Kirby Smart, and now let me see what I can do being coached by another staff, just so that I get a fuller body of knowledge, a fuller cross-section of football insight before I go into the NFL. Just being able to be coached by different staffs, getting different voices, different perspectives. I think that is attractive for one subset of players. And I think for the other subset, it's just, while I have this chance, let's see what life is like in a different part of the country. I think that there's just kind of a personal desire for just freshening one's life journey and, getting a taste of something different. And so that like the monotony of a specific routine or a specific environment, doesn't become stale. I think that's really how I come at that. Some people just want freshness, but other people, I think it's a real plus for them in their eyes and in their advisors' eyes to be coached by different staffs before going into the NFL, because that just provides a wider skill set, a wider body of knowledge. I think there are different considerations there. Now, let's pivot to Bear Alexander. Now, we have 24 different college wire sites. So Trojans Wire is one of them. I definitely wanted to go to UGA Wire, UGAwire.usatoday.com. They do a great job covering Georgia. I definitely wanted to read what they had to say about Bear Alexander. And they said that Kirby Smart was envisioning a much larger, very important role for Bear Alexander this season. So it's not as though he was supposed to be a bit player. It's not really though he was being pushed to the side. I would have to think, based on what I read at UGA Wire, that just the fit didn't feel right. The fit didn't feel as comfortable for Bear Alexander as he thought. And he made a visit to USC 2 years ago in 2021. So like he has an awareness of the program, a connection to the program, just in terms of having visited there. So like he's not a total outsider who's never seen the campus. And of course, that was before Lincoln Riley came aboard. So USC and Texas are widely viewed as being the two programs most centrally, frontally in the mix for Bear Alexander. And my gosh, if USC can land Bear Alexander, you're not just getting a prime piece who already comes, with some coaching from Kirby Smart, also Will Muschamp, the defensive coordinator at Georgia under Kirby. You not only get someone who's been coached by some really smart defensive minds, you also get a guy with multiple years of eligibility remaining. Hard to imagine a better fit. Like in terms, if you were just to imagine or describe, like what can USC use more than anything else in terms of a new player in this spring portal window, you would describe Bear Alexander. It's exactly the fit that USC needs, because USC would get bigger, stronger, thicker, more muscular, would have a guy to stuff the run up the middle. I mean, it's exactly what USC needs. So it would just be a massive home run. It would be a grand slam for the Trojans if they can land Bear Alexander in the portal.
Matt, whether you're going to take this from your own thoughts and feelings concerning USC football, the program, and where it stands right now, or you're going to take that to answer this question from the perspective of the fans that you see on the message boards and that reply to Trojans Wire and to you on Twitter and elsewhere. What is the difference between where we stand right now with this program in terms of a attitude and approach, a vibe surrounding everything that's going on now that everything was experienced that it was with 11 wins and so forth last year and the move into the Big Ten, although albeit a year plus away, versus the wait and see, the newness, the freshness of last spring, and this is a whole new deal, and let's see what this guy can do here.
Yeah, I remember what we talked about last off season, and through the many months leading up to kickoff, and it was, well, can this team win 9 games? I mean, not like, can we pretty please? Can we have 9 games? And I checked in at 10, and that turned out to be undervaluating or underestimating USC. But like, there was a lot of uncertainty just because it was all new, and could Lincoln Riley pull it together in 1 year? And right now, like, you're not hearing any of that talk. You're not hearing any of this, incrementalist, worrying about, well, how many wins can we get? It's, playoff. It's win the Pac-12. Like there's the the uncertainty, the hedging, the hemming, the hawing, how is this thing going to work out? It's, can USC be at the very top tier of college football? Like, there's a certainty in terms of the expectation. There's a certainty in terms of where this program is supposed to be. There was a lot of uncertainty, and there was a lot of just fear of the unknown, worrying about something that, we hadn't seen before. And, of course, last week, we talked about Cliff Kingsbury's arrival, and that just kind of reaffirms how different USC football is, not in terms of the expectations, not in terms of the standards, but the method that USC uses compared to the glory days of John McKay and John Robinson, and even Pete Carroll. I mean, Pete Carroll's offenses could be pretty spectacular under Norm Chow, and then also Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. But there was still kind of a blue collar mentality, and it was still, it was not like a space age type offense. You did have, amazing stars who could absolutely light up the scoreboard, but it wasn't as though USC was throwing lots of ultra modern concepts onto the field. But Lincoln Riley, this is clearly, like the new frontier of college football play design, college football offense, college football play selection. And so just the style of USC, not the expectations or standards, but the style is so unmistakably different. And I think that stylistic change and just the awareness of, this was not traditional USC dominance. It was a new form of USC dominance that, that did take some adjustment, psychologically and otherwise. And now it's just, this is who we are. We expect to be great. We know that we have the very best offense in the United States. I don't think any other offenses might come close, but I think USC really does have the most complete offense in the country. And so let's give this offense what it needs and deserves. Let's make sure we don't squander the final year of Caleb Williams' career at USC. Let's get it done. Like, there's a certainty, there's an expectation, there's a clarity. Just a lot of the worrying and wondering of the 2022 offseason, that's been wiped away. We all know what the expectation is this year.
My adversary, D, is in the chat, who was always bringing up whatever vitriol that I have against USC that he seems to grasp from thin air. But he's playing off some of the comments that you made and letting everyone know that I guess I should be telling all of us who's going to win the Pac-12. Well, I did that last year, and I said it was going to be Utah was my preseason prediction. So, but granted, just like Matt, I underestimated USC's recovery and picked them to go 9-3 and 7-2 in the Pac-12. So I cut it a little bit lower than what the final outcome was, but I did select Utah to win the Pac-12. So I'll stand on that as we move into 2023. And again, want to remind everyone that I am going to get this put together here in the next few hours, or certainly by the morning. But Matt and I will be providing exclusive content here on the USC channel, so you want to look out for that. If you want to get a feel for what that looks like in regards to the new YouTube memberships over on the main channel, we've got memberships available there as well. We will provide all sorts of neat little benefits in addition to the exclusive content, and more about that in future weeks. I don't know that he did anything special for the spring game, but I think we're all feeling better about the stability of the defense as well, with Mason Cobb on the field in regards to his leadership, being in the right place, knowing what he's doing there. Just bottom line, him being a guy that's practically a professional out there from a technician standpoint.
Well, the thing that Rick Anaya, LBC Trojan, mentioned on Sunday on Trojan Conquest Live. Again, it airs every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You want to make sure you're going there every Sunday evening for more of the USC content you crave here at the Voice of College Football, one thing that Rick was very clear about, and it was a great observation, it definitely needs to be mentioned on our show here tonight, is that Mason Cobb ran downfield in pass coverage with Taj Washington. And Taj Washington, like we know, like he's a little squirt. Like he's not Kyle Pitts, all right? He's not one of these big hulking downfield tight ends who's, a freak of nature. Like Taj Washington is your, small, fast wide receiver. He can scoot. Like he's a speed merchant. And Mason Cobb stayed with him on a downfield pass route. And like that got everyone's attention. And, I mentioned earlier how Marshawn Lloyd, came in with the reputation of being the bruiser between the tackles, but to use the Bill Raftery term, a little lingerie on the deck, making a guy miss in the open field. So Marshawn Lloyd showed that he was more than just a power guy. He really had a complete skill set. Mason Cobb really was that kind of guy on defense, because we all came in focused on, he's a reliable tackler. He's going to tackle. He's going to provide the run support. It's going to be that hammer. If the running back gets past the defensive line, that Mason Cobb's just going to knock guys down, before they can get into the next level. Mason Cobb showed that he can be an elite pass coverage guy, and not just against a tight end, or a running back. No, he can cover a fast wide receiver. So, wow, like that is a piece. That is a high-end piece for Alex Grinch to deploy, to rely on. Like if you're looking where USC is better on defense in terms of one player, and again, I emphasize that what matters is lots of guys being better, lots of guys making contributions, so that it isn't just about a few specific stars. All right. But if you were to say which player makes USC's defense better more than any others, it's Mason Cobb. Because when you look at the diversity of his skills and his ability to read and stick with all sorts of different plays, and when you consider his reputation coming from Oklahoma State, I think he's the most complete, ready for the NFL type player on this USC defense as we head into the 2023 season. Like I see the fewest weaknesses, the fewest holes in his game. And this is not, to diminish what other guys are doing. We saw other guys certainly step up and make plays, to be sure, at all three levels of the defense, the line, the linebackers, and the secondary. But like, if you're going to pick one guy to really take this thing to another level and provide ultimate stability to the defense, boy, having Mason Cobb at the linebacker spot, like, I'm sold on his run support. I'm sold on his pass coverage. When you get guys who can function on multiple levels like that, that is the kind of thing that really knits together a defense, and it really reduces the anxiety level for Alex Grinch and the USC fan base.
I have not thought about this name in quite some time, but LBC Trojan, our guy, Rick, is in the chat conversing with Michigan fans and brings up the name Justin Fargas, Michigan running back transfer, key piece to Pete Carroll's 2002 Orange Bowl championship team, tough physical runner that helped shape a winning culture. Yes, Justin Fargas, he was a high-end recruit. Absolutely. Well, Matt, is there anything else to derive from the spring game, or anything else that's been going on here in the past week?
I would just say that, the portal is open for business, and USC absolutely needs one home run. Now 2 home runs would be great, but it absolutely needs one, because just it has to be said one more time that, the good plays that came from the defense in this spring game, and a lot of them were impressive on their own merits, but there is that lingering reality in the background that this was against backup quarterbacks, backup personnel in a lot of situations. And so, to really be ready for Sam Hartman, Cam Rising, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, four quality quarterbacks, 4 offenses that look really good in a 5-week span, you're going to need more significant reinforcements. Like you can say that the defense is better. I wouldn't really argue with that. Defense is better compared to 2022. Wouldn't really argue with that, but it's how much better, being slightly to moderately better, that's not going to inspire too much confidence. It needs to be noticeably better. Not fantastic, but just solid. Can you get to solid, like B minus, straight B on defense? Like, can USC get to that level? The defense in the back part of last season was a D, and you maybe even an F, if you're being really uncharitable. But like, can USC have a B minus defense? If you're grading on a report card, that's going to require at least one massive get in the portal. USC will need that kind of addition, and ideally 2 or 3, but at least one. And so Bear Alexander, all eyes on him as we head into this spring portal window after USC's spring game.
And Matt, all things being equal, those 2 home run transfer portal additions for you would be what? Defensive line secondary?
You could say defensive line secondary. I would personally say 2 defensive linemen. I would personally go there. There's also the fact that, with Cortland Ford transferring out, if the second one was an offensive lineman, wouldn't really complain about that. But I'd say 2 defensive linemen, 2 interior defensive linemen would be the thing. Because like Anthony Lucas as an edge rusher, also Sam Green, like I think that USC's edge rushing can be better. And, keep in mind that, Romello Height and you have other players still working their way back from injuries. Like, I think that USC has a few more options at edge rusher if you're going to compare that to your interior defensive linemen. So really, 2 interior defensive linemen would be my number one preference in terms of, can we get 2 high quality portal additions? And I think second would be the defensive lineman 1, an offensive lineman 2, and then my third preference would be defensive lineman 1, and then an add in the secondary.
Folks, if you've noticed, we are doing our very best to deliver a double whammy of USC coverage here every week at the Voice of College Football with our buddies Tim and Rick, and Trojan Conquest Live every Sunday night at 5 Pacific time. And then Matt drops by, which is a beyond bonus for Matt to drop by and join Rick and Tim as much as he possibly can to provide further analysis. And then, of course, Matt and I get together each and every Monday at 8 Pacific to join you for USC Trojans Live. So we are all over it, and will continue to be. Now comes a really fun time because we can continue to break down positions. The transfer portal will be humming. There's, of course, recruiting, ton of big recruiting weekends in May and June, and then we'll probably see the fruits of those labors on into the summer, and then we'll get into August camp. We'll continue to review schedules. We will pursue what we did last year in regards to bringing in voices from the other teams on USC's schedule, quality contributors from other sites to talk about the opponents for 2023, every conceivable angle. And always we enjoy and we welcome your requests as well. And again, USC channel memberships will be available shortly, so be looking out for that as Matt and I provide exclusive content right here at the Voice of College Football SC. Matt, anything in particular that you're working on for this week?
Oh, we're just continuing to process the spring game. We're also going to be looking more at now as the spring game kind of recedes into memory a little bit. Going to do a few more looks at Cliff Kingsbury and his influence and the meaning of his arrival at USC. And of course, NFL draft not too far away. So, you're going to find on our site the various, mocks, draft projections from our NFL wire sites. We're going to take from them and see what they're saying about the landing spots for the USC members of the NFL draft class. So, in this last week of April coming up, like the NFL draft becomes our focus, as it is for, any other college wire site, to see where, players are going to go in the pros. So that's what we have on our website. Just want to get one more comment in the chat. Donnell Smith said, giving an F to the defensive backs. I didn't say giving an F to the defensive backs. I said that, if you were a harsh grader, you could say that USC's defense earned an F grade late in the season, especially against Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. So USC needs to have a B- defense instead of a D defense. So the D grade, maybe something got lost in translation there. So I didn't say the defensive backs got an F, and certainly not in the spring game. Like, they were good. But just it was talking about really the grade for the D. So a D for the D, maybe that got a little bit lost in translation there. So that's the point I was trying to make.
Folks, I just dropped the link to Matt's work and the entire site there at Trojans Wire. Drop the link there in the chat. So it's an easy find. Just click right on the link and you can follow Matt's work at Trojans Wire. We'll be back here, of course, next Monday at 8 Pacific, right here at the Voice of College Football. Catch Tim and Rick as the lead-in for the week. Of course, on Sunday at 5 Pacific time with Trojan Conquest Live right here at the Voice of College Football. We appreciate it. Thanks for everyone being here. If you arrived late, all you have to do is wait for the video to post, which is almost instantaneously, and you can just keep it right here on the channel and catch what you missed right here at the Voice of College Football. Traveling Fools, yes, yes, yes. Yo, 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 yo. We see you there in the chat, and we will see you all Sunday and Monday for more Trojans coverage next week.